What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. My name is Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Today, I want to just pause and pump the brakes just a little bit because what I've kind of seen is that there's a lot of angst and anxiety out there in Packers land about the state of the current Packers team. And understandably a little bit, because there's all this talk, and I'm certainly a part of this talk of, the Packers not having the salary cap space, not going to be able to bring in some free agents. They go get Joe Barry as a defensive coordinator. They've got a really tough schedule next year. You hear about the potential releases of guys like Preston Smith, Dean Lowry, Rick Wagner, Christian Kirksey. You hear about bringing, not being able to bring guys back like Corey Linsley and Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams and Kevin King. And you start putting the puzzle pieces together a little bit and you start saying, how in the heck is Green Bay going to be better this upcoming season? How can they lose a Corey Linsley and lose an Aaron Jones? And how can they, not add, players in and have a tougher schedule and still compete this upcoming season? And it seems to be that there's definitely a lot of anxiety out there about that. So I want to just pause and take a time out and pump the brakes a little bit on that today, because Green Bay is still in a very, very good situation. And what I want to start by talking about is the core of this Packers team. And some people don't like this, others do. But the fact of the matter is that Green Bay already had two very big free agent signings this offseason, and that includes Kenny Clark and David Bachtieri. If any other team in the National Football League would have signed Kenny Clark and David Bachtieri, it would be front page news, team of destiny, all in, any sort of cliche newspaper headline that you want to think about. That's what it would be if some team signed David Bachtieri and Kenny Clark to two of the richer deals, the richest offensive lineman deal and one of the richer defensive lineman deals in all of football. That would be huge news. Imagine, tomorrow if the Detroit Lions signed David Bachtieri and Kenny Clark, or the Vikings signed David Bachtieri, Kenny Clark, whoever you want to put in there, that would be a massive, massive news story. Green Bay just got a little bit of a jump on it, signing them mid-season, but those were set to be unrestricted free agents this year, and Green Bay was able to retain both of them. But not so much that's a piece of this, but I want to go over the core of this Packers team, because what so often gets lost, depth and overall talent on a team matter, but so often it is your premium players at premium positions. They're going to set you apart and get you over the top. And I'm here to tell you that Green Bay, their premium players at their premium positions are as good or better than any teams in the NFL. And that starts, of course, 1A with the MVP of the league, Aaron Rodgers. He is the most important positional player in the league, right? You can put Patrick Mahomes on there, right, as well, or alongside of him, maybe Russell Wilson as well. But as important and as valuable as any player in the National Football League, and you have him as your starting quarterback, MVP, three-time MVP, playing at the top of his game, running this Matt Lafleur offense with incredible efficiency. That is the starting point. You have Devante Adams, arguably the best receiver in football, that puts a ridiculous amount of stress on defenses, and that if you go one-on-one against him, Aaron Rodgers is going to read that pre-snap, and he can eat that up all day long. That is a huge, huge piece for Green Bay at another premium position. Jair Alexander, basically the flip, a shutdown corner, arguably the best corner in the game. That is a huge chess piece and a huge piece of the core of this Packers team. It's still very young, it's still getting better. David Bachtieri, yes, he's going to be hurt to start the season, but arguably the best offensive lineman, best left tackle, best pass protecting lineman, however you want to label it. He's one of the absolute best in all of football at protecting the quarterback and protecting Aaron Rodgers' blind side. Another huge, huge piece to the core of this team. Kenny Clark, he's the space eater in the middle of this defense. He's what makes everything else go. Still playing at an incredibly high level, still very young, still getting better. You have him in the middle of your defense. Zadarius Smith came down a little bit in 2020. In 2019 was unstoppable. Still one of the better pressure players in all the National Football League. And some may disagree with me putting this player on this list, but I'm going to anyway. Adrian Amos at safety. one of the better safeties in the league, consistent, gets everyone on the same page, can do everything. We've seen him come and play closer to the line. We've seen him play cover 2. We've seen him play single high. He can do it all, and he does it all very, very well, and he teams very, very well with Darnell Savage. That core is filled with veteran players who are playing at the top of their game, that are very strong when it comes to leadership, that get everything else going for this Packers team. And one other thing I want to put on this list is Matt Lafleur, who is, there's no question about it anymore, is one of the great offensive minds in football already. And he and his system and his offense are already proving to be a hell of a lot to handle for opposing defenses. So you've got this fantastic offensive mind and then this insane group of core players. That's not changing. The core of this team is remaining the same. And yes, Corey Linsley at center and Aaron Jones at running back were 2 major pieces. And if they lose those 2, that is going to be a difficult pill to swallow. One, because they're just awesome people, awesome players. They're, ultimate Green Bay Packers, and you hate to see them play anywhere else. But they're both damn good, and you don't want to see them play elsewhere. And you certainly don't want to see them just not in Green Bay in general. So those will be tough pills to swallow. But the running back position has not moved the needle for most teams. You can get by with lesser running backs. You don't have to go far back to just the San Francisco game this year when Aaron Jones has been out. Like, they've been fine with Tyler Ervin in there at running back. I know it's just San Francisco, but you can get by running this Matt Lafleur offense without having an Aaron Jones in there. And my highest graded running back on a per play basis this past season was A.J. Dillon. And you can still do a ton of really good stuff. And I know that was in a very limited amount of snaps, so take it with a grain of salt. But this offense is going to be just fine with A.J. Dillon and some rookie running backs, whoever they ultimately end up bringing in. Corey Linsley, you've got some options on the roster already. Elton Jenkins and Lucas Patrick. And John Runyon Jr. coming in at guard so that Jenkins or Patrick can move to one of those spots. And you would expect Green Bay to maybe bring back Elaine Taylor, bring in a draft pick or 2. Maybe Simon Stepaniak has something to offer as well. We don't know at this point, but they still can put together a damn good offensive line based around David Bachtieri and Elton Jenkins. So I'm not buying the fact that this team is taking a massive hit. And Preston Smith, Dean Lowry, Rick Wagner, Christian Kirksey, Jamal Williams, Kevin King, those guys are all replaceable players. Those are all players that you can either upgrade from or at least stay equal. I really, truly believe that. So how does Green Bay improve, though? Their core stays the same. We know that. And now it's going to be uplifting the players around them. Well, they've got another core group of 4 players who are already really good that aren't maybe in that top tier of core players yet, but Darnell Savage, Elton Jenkins, Bobby Tunyon, Rashawn Gary, all 4 of them are ready to make that jump and add to that group. And if they can get to that next tier, if they can really become true game changers, and I mean, Elton Jenkins is practically there, if not there already. Bobby Tunyon was, I don't know that we can put him in that top tier tight end category, but he's darn close. Rashawn Gary really coming into his own as a pass rusher and as just an edge defender against the run as well. Darnell Savage took a major step. If those guys can get to that next tier, now, Green Bay had all the guys we just mentioned, plus maybe Jones and Corey Linsley. Well, they lose those 2, but if those 4 guys step up to the next tier, you still have more talented high-end core players than you had even this past season. And then there's another group of players that I don't think are going to make that top tier, but are also ready to step up and grow within this team. Players like Chris Barnes, Kingsley Keke, maybe a Jay Sternberger, A.J. Dillon, MVS, maybe a John Runyon Jr., Josiah DeGuara. There's still another core group of players that, again, probably aren't going to get to that top tier, but are still going to be improving and helping your team out. And then, oh, by the way, I still think Green Bay is going to have at least 1 home run swing this offseason. And maybe that's bringing back Corey Linsley. Maybe that's bringing back Aaron Jones. Maybe that's bringing in J.J. Watt. Maybe that's bringing in Richard Sherman. Maybe that's bringing in some player that's not even been released yet. Maybe it's a trade. Who knows? But I still think Brian Gutekunst, he said at his season-ending press conference that they were going to be aggressive and they were willing to take risks. there is going to be something that they do this offseason that I think is going to open eyes. I would expect one home run swing, maybe one more player on that upper tier. Again, maybe it's just Corey Linsley. Maybe it's not just Corey Linsley, but Corey Linsley. Maybe it's J.J. Watt. Who knows? But I think they're going to add one more player to that group. All right? And then you still have a full draft. And I do not expect, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm crazy to think this, I do not expect them in their first 3 picks to go just, players that maybe can contribute 2 or 3 years from now. I would expect them to go out and try to find some players that maybe are long-term fits, but can come in and help Green Bay win right now as well. Brian Gutekunst realizes that this window is closing, that Aaron Rodgers only has a few of these probably very high-end seasons left, and now is the time to strike. And I know people are upset because the draft last year didn't echo that. I don't know that they knew this last year. I don't know that they knew that Aaron Rodgers had another MVP season in him. And now we do know that. Now Brian Gutekunst does know that, and I think they're going to adjust accordingly. My bigger point here today is that take a deep breath, exhale. There's going to be a lot of releases. There's going to be some restructures. There's going to be some things that are going to make things difficult down the road. All right. But the core of this team is still incredibly talented. They have the right person at head coach to get this team over the top. They've got the right quarterback. They've got the right players at the right positions for the right reasons. They've got another core group that's ready to step up and take the mantle and step their games up even further. And they still have some young lottery tickets that are developing and could be better sooner rather than later. Plus a draft class, plus I think maybe a surprise or two to still add to this team. A lot of offseason to go. I think you should be more excited than not about this offseason and what Green Bay's, maybe not what they do in the offseason, but just the overall roster that Green Bay is able to assemble with that core group of players on this team. They are going to be a force to reckon with still in the NFC this year. And it's just going to take a couple of these players reaching to the next level, whether it be a Darnell Savage or Rashawn Gary, an MVS, an Elton Jenkins, who knows who else, maybe their first round pick. Who knows? It just takes one of those players to really step up, or a couple of those players, and Green Bay is right back in a position to contend for a Super Bowl. I'm very bullish on the Packers this upcoming season. This is not just the homer and me talking. This is me being realistic as much as I possibly can be. I think Green Bay's got a very strong 2021 ahead of them still. That's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to subscribe. If you didn't, you can still subscribe anyway. I'd appreciate that as well. Make sure to check out our audio version of the podcast today, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.